it's all rainbow and sunshine when you say all this, but I feel like there's so much going on. I mean,
There
yeah,
is,
maybe
but you
I'm
really
not.
got to dig in and commit to
Yeah,
changing
you're
the
right.
miles.
You're right.
Like,
And you actually gave me a really good idea about finding out what the actual cost per mile is and get deep down to it. Because then when you know that, you're right. You can go to the shipper and be like, hey, this is what's costing my truck. I need 10 cents over, 20 cents over extra, to make a profit, to obviously keep growing, to buy new equipment, to reinvest into the company.
but I
So
mean,
so I
I would take it one step further and look at the whole clock for the week for a driver and find out like what the revenues per hour are on that 70.
We have a really fascinating, interesting podcast ahead of us. Tim Breckenridge, Senior Vice President at Rocket Logistics, started off at Echo. And also, you've been doing some trucking consultancy on the side, helping trucking companies become profitable, work directly with shippers. You have a really nice, background in the trucking side and the brokerage side. So for us, for Bob and I, we'll have a really good conversations about various topics. But Tim, thanks for coming on the podcast. And if you could just maybe give us a little background on yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Bob. So yeah, I started off at Echo long time ago. It's been, I think, 17 years. And that's kind of where I learned truckload and LTL actually. Bounced around in various departments at Echo, and from there, I actually worked for FLS for a little bit. Then I worked for Hub Group, and then eventually I got out of the whole brokerage game, and that's where I kind of went into my consulting career. Worked for IBM in the logistics and supply chain sector for them. Got to learn a lot about strategic sourcing, category management, vendor management, specifically with the Department of Defense and managing all of their outsourced transportation suppliers. Then from there, I was on the went to work for another boutique consulting firm, and then finally got out of that and brought my knowledge back into the industry. Worked for a couple of mid-size asset players, and that went for about 5 years, and now I'm with Rocket, senior vice president. A great company. Love Gabe. Love Maury. She's our president at Rocket Logistics. Samantha, obviously, our VP of revenue. Those are the two other co-founders of Rocket Logistics. So it's a great team. And then obviously I have the consulting business on the side where I'm working with, small to mid-sized carriers, as you mentioned, helping them understand the industry a little bit more, helping them scale, just drive the efficiencies internally, and then helping them understand how they can run, effectively within a shipper's network and, scale their business, kind of give them, models, short and long term to understand, or I help them understand, what can hopefully be sustainable long term business for them.
Definitely. Well, we have a ton of Instagram questions that at least I got. I know Bobby probably have some too.
Oh no.
Yeah.
We decided that we're going to start off with the Instagram questions before we go into some deeper topics. So
Are they
Bob,
for both of us, or are they just for me?
well, these are all for you,
Okay.
for the most part. Bob, do you have any questions right now you want to ask?
I mean, if you want, you can start off, because I feel like once we start asking these questions, I feel like we'll go deeper into it,
Okay,
because there's
sure.
a lot of so.
Definitely. So I got a question here. Tim, with all the extensive experience that you have in the industry, what is the best way to get a new client slash shipper? How do you approach them? What's good to say to new potential client?
Well, I guess there's going to be probably two different ways to approach it, whether you're an asset or a broker. Because right now, if you're a broker, a lot of what you're going to hear is, "Oh, we're reducing our supplier base. We're not adding brokers. We're actively reducing the amount of brokers." So, this answer is going to be like a lot of other answers you've heard on this show is, get to know your target. Like, don't send out mass emails. Understand their network and really, this is if you're a broker, obviously understand their network, create a model that's different than potentially what every other broker is doing out there. And obviously, I'm going to say what Andrew said, we're all largely the same. We're a third party, we're a third party logistics provider. So it's like, get to know your shippers, add some value some way, be different than the guy down the block. I know what we're doing at Rocket is different than the majority of what other brokers are doing. We're very focused on our carriers. It's carrier first, match with the shipper. And we can dive into that. I don't want to give the secret sauce away, but there's a lot more work on the front end. But yeah, get to know the shipper, find some value. Don't offer to save money, because you don't know if you can make any money if you're saving that person's money.
Right.
That's what I would say if you're on the third party side. If you're an asset, know your own network before you offer it to a shipper. Don't say you run all 48 states. Tell them that you run, give them your last year, and break it down like, hey, in 2022, these were our top 5 origin points. These were our top 5 destination points. I know that you run these lanes because I know your distribution network, or I know your vendor inbound network. Can we match this up? Yes, we can offer trailers. No, we can't offer trailers. We're dry, we're reefer, whatever it may be. Like, create something that these people are getting solicited 100 times a day, So give them everything that you can give them up front to allow them to vet you. And then maybe think of something outside the box that not a lot of the other asset players are offering. So whatever that may be.
If you're Bob right now, like, what would you tell Bob from like your trucking consultancy side? Like, Bob has 15 trucks. What could he do to get a shipper?
Bob's initial, for the don'ts. Don't go for, in my opinion, the Targets, the Walmarts, the ones that are going to have minimum truck requirements, 50 trucks. If you don't have 2-to-1 truck to trailer ratio, but you're really close, try and get there, because
2-to-1. So basically have 2 trailers to one truck, right?
Yeah.
So like so you have a drop pool.
Correct.
Okay.
Find a hometown shipper.
Like, that's little.
We talked about this. I don't know if you guys have done your Charlotte trip yet, but find a hometown shipper so that you can say, hey, I'm here. I need to get my trucks back here every week, or I want to originate them here. And they know they can feel safe. The equipment's always going to be there. It doesn't have to be a massive shipper. If you're targeting that small to medium sized guy, so what if they ship 50 loads a week? Maybe 25 of those are yours, and then build loops around that. And I think then you'll find, you'll find yourself being profitable. I think another thing though, is what people don't understand is, I'm sure you guys understand, like, 80% of a rate is in your origin and destination pair. Start finding favorable origin and destination pairs. Don't look at it as, you're making money on, one way, breaking even or losing, coming back, because eventually, like right now with the soft market, you might just barely be making money on your head haul and you're losing your ass on the way back. Understand your break evens. This now I'm off the rails on the original question, is what I would talk to Bob
my
about.
Question, I get that, and that's a very good point. So to start that, would you recommend doing your research on these shippers first, like finding out what this guy is shipping, what this, like the customer, right? Do you do research before you contact them, or no? Or you just kind of like, hey, what do you got? You show up like, I have 15 trucks, or you kind of tell him what you have, and then they'll let you know.
I do your research, especially with the amount of solicitations they get. You want to know more about their network than they do. I mean, I know it's impossible to really do, but come with some knowledge. Maybe look back a couple of years ago and see if you ran some freight for them through a broker. I think after a couple of years, if you haven't hauled anything for a broker, it's not technically back soliciting, but start to understand what their network looks like. If it's a backyard guy, go to his office. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a little cold calling in person.
Yeah.
So,
No, I had a friend. I talked to a friend. He actually said in a month he went around. He lives in Charlotte, southeast of Charlotte, and he went around for like a month. He was just going and kind of knocking on, not knocking on doors, but I guess going to the actual warehousing. And he said within a month he had like 4 customers, direct customers.
yeah.
So I was like, oh shoot, that actually kind of works.
Yeah, just get to know the local guys. Now, if you're a little bit of a larger player, like one of my consulting clients in the past, we ran an email campaign, but we did it with, we looked at their last 2 years of data and where they originated and their origin destination pairs. Like I said, hey, these are our top 5 lanes from the last 2 years, or maybe with them because they were a little bit bigger. I think it was top 10 lanes. This is where our equipment lands. We're emailing you because we understand your distribution matches up with either an origin or destination pair. A little bit more vague, but we gave them truck count, trailer count, owner operator count, van, reefer, all the value adds with potential integrations, ability to track, 24-hour customer service, EDI, API, whatever it was. Like, we have it all. Here you go.
Yeah.
Hey, we've enhanced our insurance. Now instead of 2 million, we have 5 million. We have 250 cargo. Like, literally everything that they needed to know. And they blasted it out to, I don't know, 20,000 contacts or something. And then out of now their business has started to transform. So, but you got to understand, like, it takes time. It really takes time.
Yeah.
And overall, you'd recommend, Tim, if you're a trucking company, to go directly with the shipper, or like, do you think there's like a good balance to have? Like, what do you tell trucking companies, like, in order to be, more profitable? What's like the nice balance to have with brokers and direct shippers?
I mean, obviously, if you can lock in on committed contract freight, and obviously just because contract freight doesn't mean you own it, it can go away the next day, but there's a little bit more of a relationship there if you're committing some equipment to a broker or a shipper. And I think that I don't really believe that there's an advantage going directly to a shipper or working with a broker if you're making the money that you need to make to be profitable, to reinvest in your business. Obviously, there's a little bit more potential for a broker to pull the business because they have so many, trucking companies in their portfolio. Market softens, maybe they're trying to make a little bit more money. I mean, that's not what I would do. But I would really say whatever can make you profitable or helps you reinvest in your business is the way to go. But there is something to be said about working directly with the shippers, obviously.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pros and cons even doing that. Hold on a second. Can you guys still see me?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of pros and cons doing that, because I feel like even when you go directly to the shippers, right? Well, now you have to wait like 90 days or whatever it is to get paid, unless you do factoring through a different company, like where we talked with Alex, from Com Freight.
I was just gonna say,
instead of working with the broker.
Yeah. Like, and not just payment terms, but all of a sudden now you have to have a team dedicated to scheduling appointments.
Account managing.
Brokers do everything for you.
Yeah.
You got to have customer success / account management all of a sudden. And then unless you're, all drop and hook, but there's still some coordination that goes, comes into that. So again, if there are plenty of small carriers out there, they only run brokered freight, but they have structured it in a way that it allows them to have a sustainable business instead of just getting the highest cost load that they can get that day, or the highest paying load, and then finding themselves in a shitty area and then all of a sudden the driver's sitting for days. I mean, Bob, you know how it goes. It's just
Yeah.
so that long-winded answer there to that question.
Sure. I mean, it's definitely tough right now for a lot of trucking companies to stay profitable, like going directly with brokers or even shippers. It could be really difficult.
I just talked to a guy today who hauls some of our freight up to Minnesota, and he booked 3 loads for 3 of his trucks today that were out in Salt Lake City, which I don't know why you go to Salt Lake in the winter because you're just from the eastern half of the country, because then you're riding I-80, but that's a whole nother story. He booked 3 loads, Salt Lake to Dallas, for $1.05 a mile all in.
Sheesh.
Wow.
I'm like, and so he's got to pay the driver 30%, he said, because I guess they're company trucks that are on a percentage, and then obviously he's got his fuel. He's paying out of pocket. He's clearly losing money.
For sure. There's nobody that runs for $1 a mile to make any money. That's you're $1.50. You're not still making any money.
Yeah, no, I know.
No way. Yeah, I think. I think if you're running $1.60 with fuel, you're probably pretty good right now.
$1.60?
I don't know, Bob.
No,
that would be my. No, here comes Bob.
No way.
Bob, what's your break even? Do you know your break even?
Yeah, it's around, I would say from $2 to $2.20 right now. Fuel did go down. We do have a little bit of a discount.
That's with fuel though. $2 to $2.20 with fuel.
Yeah.
Okay. Because
so
Tim was saying that, 160 plus fuel. I'm not sure how much is 50.
No. I was thinking like $1.60 to $1.90 all in would be running pretty good.
Nope.
Okay.
No way. Okay, how much do you think drivers get paid?
For you, I bet you're paying them 75 cents a mile.
No, we actually don't. Our top drivers get 70 cents right now.
Okay. So 70 cents a mile. Fuel is anywhere between what? 50 to 55 cents. I haven't looked to see what it was this past week.
No, it's more. It's more than that. It's like it was a month ago we were at almost $1. No joke. It was $1. There is. Right now it's like at 80 cents or something like that, even if not more. There is. And believe me, some companies don't even have a discount. We have a discount. Fuel is expensive still. So it's what, $5 per gallon on average, right?
Here, well, let's look.
How much is How much?
We're gonna have to cut this out.
No. We're leaving this in. How much is average diesel in USA?
I got it right here.
Now. U.S. retail diesel price is at current levels at $4.20. There's no way. California is way more than that.
Yeah. Well, how many of your trucks are in California? It's at $4.28 this week.
$4.28.
And how many of your 17 trucks are in California?
Not 17. We don't have 17, man.
15.
We're barely at 15.
We're barely at 15. What does that mean? We're barely at 15.
It changes, because some owner operators because that's not even all of our trucks. We have owner operators too. Some operators join, some leave, and it's always, every time people ask me how many trucks we have, and I'm like, I don't really even know, to be honest, because it can change from a week base. Today I buy a truck, tomorrow I could sell one, and it just. But back to the fuel. So 420. I don't know if that's correct. I don't think that's correct. There's no way.
Well, I don't think they're lying. I don't think the government's lying about the national average.
Google. Okay, but national average. Look at what it is in
North Carolina.
Yeah.
But California's an outlier.
Central Atlantic is 473.
Yeah, okay, so North Carolina is about 420. Okay, so you have 420 a gallon, right? In an average truck, if it's 45,000 pounds, you're going to get what, 5-6 miles per gallon? So just do the math. It comes out to like 80 cents.
No.
What do you mean no?
Yeah. I disagree. Should I send you the break-even calculator?
But Tim, why do you disagree?
there's no way. How many miles did you run last week, Bob? Should we run through the break even calculator?
Okay. No. I literally have a statement from last week. My girls do actually a pretty legit statement. So look, 104 actually will show what the average. So maybe I was wrong. Okay, 102, 0.63 average per gallon, 0.74, 0.79, 0.74, 0.73, 0.84, 0.59, 0.62, 0.69, 1.7. I don't know where this guy went, or maybe it was just a thing.
I'm busting out my calculator right now.
0.51. The average was 74 cents per gallon, right? Or no, 70 cents.
Yeah.
So it's per mile. Sorry, per mile. So 74 cents each mile that you're running.
Per mile or per gallon?
No, per mile.
What's your average mile per gallon?
Miles per gallon. Okay, so 102, 6.8, 104, 5.3, 106, 4.79,
Well,
107, 12. Because sometimes it depends how, like which week how you run it, because they could fill up and it could be like they didn't run enough miles that week, so it can kind of fluctuate.
Here,
but the average, I would say, average is 5 to 6 per 5 to 6.
Just tell me what your
gallon.
total fuel bill was last week.
Oh, I don't have the total fuel bill on here.
How many gallons you bought? That's going to give me the price per gallon. Then we're going to average out your miles per gallon in the fleet, and then we're going to find out how much it really costs. I mean,
okay, shit, I can't even say.
Yeah, we'll circle back.
Exactly. But I can guarantee you it's not 50 cents. It's definitely not 50
I didn't say it was
cents.
50, but it's not $1 either.
Well, it's less than $1, but it was $1 not that long ago.
Okay, well then what were you doing a year ago? Or over the summer? You're telling me it was like $1.20?
No. For what? For diesel?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't that expensive.
Okay. Well, fuel's gone down $1 since then.
Yeah, but it's still pretty high.
Easily.
It's definitely high. There's no way you're making profit at $1.80 running a load for $1.80.
I'm not saying that. I'm definitely not saying that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a monthly statements too. I got to check through this. I could check through all the numbers, but it's really bad. It's not the greatest thing.
Here's like, the other thing. So while we're on this topic, if you're a carrier and you're offering contract services to either a broker or a shipper, you run a line haul plus a fuel surcharge. Okay. There's no all-in rates anymore. Like as soon as you're committing capacity to a lane for a set period of time, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever it is, you're a line haul plus fuel surcharge. Because guess what? 99.9% of shippers pay fuel. They're paying it to the broker. They're not paying it to you.
Have you done that before, Bob? Where you ask someone?
No. I don't
create
even
a fuel
know
surcharge. You know, I got a couple I can send you. Because there's a few different. Obviously, there's Breakthrough, which might actually be the best.
So what's the fuel surcharge right now? Say if you went to a broker or to a shipper right now, what's the fuel
probably anywhere between 55 and 65 cents a mile, depending on what model they run.
Yeah.
If it's Breakthrough, maybe a little bit less, but Breakthrough is going to give you the average cost of fuel that day along that route.
Yeah.
So, but I think Breakthrough is probably the most accurate way to calculate fuel. As much as people hate it.
Breakthrough is what, a website that you calculate it through, or is that just a form?
Yeah, the company that does it, at least the one that we work with. So they take, let's say you have a shipment from Fargo, North Dakota to like Atlanta, Georgia. It will literally take like into account like the fuel rate in Fargo, North Dakota when you pick up. Then, for example, like I'm not sure how many miles afterwards you got to refuel, but it's going to take, let's say, if you're in Wisconsin and you got to refuel, it's going to take that location, Wisconsin, average fuel price, and it's going to do that all the way until you get to Atlanta. So it's more accurate, but it's also comes out to being lower and cheaper. And shippers like it because that way they pay a lower rate.
They're paying what they should probably really pay.
Yeah, in a way. But Okay, Tim, you were just at Food Shippers this whole week. You're playing golf, hanging out with shippers, hanging out with brokers. What was that whole experience like? Is going to a conference where there's a lot of shippers, is the ROI really high? What are the benefits of going there? And can you tell us more about like your time at Food Shippers?
So I think Food Shippers is probably one of the best conferences that engages shippers, um, 3PLs and asset-based carriers, because if I understand correctly, there's like an even number of each. It's one third, one third, one third. So it's not an exhibit type conference where there's a million sponsors. There's no exhibit hall. Or obviously there's panels and seminars, but it's essentially, even though the conference itself is only like 3 days, it's week long networking. It's almost like speed dating. You sit down, you schedule your meetings. You get 30 minutes or so with a shipper. You kind of give them this is if you're selling somebody new, you give them your value prop. You get to understand their network and what they do and what they're looking for. And it's one of the few times that everybody that's there is open to networking. I've gone to other shows like Manifest or CSCM. Well, no, CSCMP is pretty good. What are some of the other larger shows that have like exhibit halls where everybody's there to like look for new vendors and not necessarily there to look for new, vendor service providers?
I know home delivery.
Thing,
I've never been to home delivery. I'm not sure if it's good or not.
Yeah, there's very few tech people there. Everybody's there for transportation. Like that's what it is.
No.
So can a trucking company go there or no?
1/3 of them is trucking companies,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, it is. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it's probably, looking back from like last year, the rate of return from what happened from my attendance last year, for my previous employer, I'd say that probably 10 or 12 new customers came from that show last year. And, this year being on the third party side, you're getting an understanding from, your current partners or your prospective partners on what they're looking for, how diverse their supplier base is, if they're going to turn it over, what they're looking for in new providers. And I mean, it's an invaluable experience. It sells out quick. But once
so it sells out. You can't you can't like buy tickets no matter what, because like most conferences just allow you to keep buying.
And like I'm pretty sure like if you've gone in previous years, like it's a tiered registration process. It goes out to the shippers first, and then the sponsors, and then the previous attendees, and it's like all the overflow then will go to potentially like new people coming in.
Got it.
Oh wow, damn! I gotta get signed up on that.
It is. I mean, it's invaluable.
Okay.
I would. Man, if I had to miss that next year, I'd be super disappointed.
So, what conversations were you having this year with shippers? What are shippers looking for? Like, what kind of like feedback did you get from like the panels and stuff? Like, what did you hear? What do you think? People like. I mean, you don't want to probably say everything, but like, what's something that you've taken away from the conference? Like, because it just happened a couple of days ago.
Well, there's obviously a lot of shippers compared to last year, where everybody, last year it was in like mid-February. People were still in a panic because the market at that time was still real tight. And so there was definitely a lot more opportunity last year. This year, like I said, you're getting a lot of shippers that are consolidating their, trimming their supplier bases in half in some cases, maybe even more. But you need to feed like this is the real time to figure out like, all right, what is my value to a shipper? We heard from some of our potential new partnerships, with Rocket, being a 3PL originally, it was a hard no, and then we were explaining our model, and then it was like, actually, let's talk. And we actually got 2 rate files today to review from people that were actively saying, no, we're not adding brokers. So this goes back to actually your first question. find a way to differentiate yourself, whatever it is, and turn those no's into yeses. But I know everybody's a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, food shippers is an
So,
invaluable experience.
so can you explain a little bit about like when you say like from a no to a yes? So when you say they change their mind, that way they put you as like, hey, we need to ship this product out, and they'll ship it through you. Is that what you mean?
No, more of like, hey, we're not adding any brokers right now, or we're not adding any new carriers at all right now. To actually, you know what? Let's get you over some data and see, what you guys can build around, our
So
lane
so
set.
base
So
Okay, so basically shippers have like a list of brokers that they can use too, right? Or the ones that they actually like you get registered with them and then
yeah,
like okay,
so yeah, like a lot of shippers are, have a bloated supplier base right now because they needed extra capacity last year or through their
oh,
last
okay.
RFP cycle. But now that the market softened, now they realize that they have too many suppliers.
That may
It's not an effective model for them anymore. So they want to trim down their supplier base. They're, maybe if you gouged during COVID, they might be, reevaluating that relationship. Being an incumbent right now is you're at an advantage. If you came to the rescue during COVID, there's a lot of value there.
Definitely.
okay. That
Yeah.
that makes sense. See, I didn't know that shippers or like these customers have their own like, group of brokers that they work with or asset-based
Yeah.
carriers
Yeah.
that they work
Oh,
with.
absolutely.
Yeah, like to get
Yeah.
set up with a shipper, it's difficult because they typically already have a person they work with or a set of list of people they work with, and
Mhm.
like shippers are picky because shippers brokers just flood them with phone calls and emails all day. So like
Right.
to Tim's point, to differentiate yourself, and what Tim was saying earlier was that you guys Rocket goes to the carrier first, and then you find like capacity to match the carrier, which
Capacity to
is
match the shipper.
which, like you said, is more work on the front end, but it allows you to differentiate yourself with the shipper, with the potential customer. That's how these potential customers at food shippers were interested at Rocket, right? Because that's what
Yeah,
your
I mean,
model.
we're like, when we turn back RFPs, like everything's routing guide based. Depending on the volume, it's a minimum 3 carriers on every lane. They've met a specific set, I call it the 10 commandments, a specific set of requirements to even haul freight within our network, which is, I don't want to go through them all, but it's creating an extra layer of protection, and it kind of separates like, you know, the real carriers from the ones that are kind of the wannabes. They think they want to, get into the contract freight business, but they really don't want to. You know, so like I said, a lot of work on the front end, routing guide based. We're allowed to tender, we can waterfall tender with our TMS. We actually share our carriers with the shippers. We get approval from the shipper if they're interested in that. So the shippers know exactly who's hauling their freight.
So
GPS and EO.
do
So
they
like
know
let's
who's
let's say Bob, your company contracts on a lane with us, and you're in the routing guide and you're the primary carrier. We are telling the shipper, or maybe even bringing you in on an onboard call. Hey, Bob, meet XYZ shipper. Like this is who's hauling the freight.
yeah.
A lot of
And
a lot
he's
of
well
information gets lost in translation.
Mhm.
It's super transparent. Uh, you know, will it come back to bite us at some point? Potentially.
And I
But
would be sitting there, I'd be like, yeah, we need at least 250 a mile.
well, yeah, you're not gonna get all that because
And you're
if
like,
you
no, Bob won't work for us. He's too
no. So
expensive. We need to find Swift drivers to haul this stuff. You
if
know?
you've gotten to that point where you're on the onboard with the shipper, rates have already been negotiated and everybody's agreed. And
Oh, okay. Yeah.
it's not like I'm pulling you off the street to go, negotiate directly with the shipper.
Can you imagine? That'd be hilarious. I
No,
mean, that
yeah,
would not be hilarious because your shipper would
but
probably be pissed.
you
But
know,
yeah.
by doing all of this, and again, there's so much more into the formula than what I've mentioned, but it just allows us to operate on a little bit of a slimmer margin because we're not going to throw labor in an award. We're going to stick to the formula.
Sure.
and, continue to operate, pretty lean. So like our freight rarely touches the spot market.
So you guys are rarely posting loads.
Rarely. I mean, I think so we had one last week. We had one cross-border shipment that reached DAT last week. I think we had two today.
Okay.
Oh.
That's really fascinating to hear, because I feel like the new era of like a brokerage will be those that like do that model. Like that's
well, it's hey, let's run through an RFP. Let's see what kind of award we get. And then all of a sudden, okay, so if let's say your Rocket's size, I mean, there's 30 something employees, or right at 30 employees. And we have a huge managed LTL business. And the truckload continues to grow. Let's say we win a $3 million award from somebody. Like, that's a decent amount of freight. What are we going to do? Just hire a bunch of carrier sales reps to pound the phones? No, I'd rather bust our ass sourcing on the front end, build routing guides around it, share our model. And then when it's go live time, we're managing the exception. Like we don't have to do anything unless it gets to the spot market, or if it falls, not even spot, unless it gets through, the routing guide. And if it comes out of the routing guide and we get 3 rejections or 4 rejections, however deep the routing guide is, then we're looking back at our internal carrier base before, going out to a DAT, or maybe looking back at the bid saying, all right, well, we had 20 carriers that we could have put on this lane. I'm going to go back and call one of them and see if they can handle this load.
Sure. That's smart. I mean, it's obviously, it takes a lot more effort on the front end. It takes more time, but at the end of the day, like, shippers for sure appreciate that, because they're essentially tapping into your sourced carrier network. And it's not, you don't have those assets, but you have the relationships in place, and you have all the data that you need, which is, most brokerages are just super lazy. They just want to post a load on the DAT, post it in 10 different cities, pick up, just so they get more call-ins, and then just sell the load, which, like, it's not rocket science. That's not rocket science. What you guys are doing,
rocket logistics.
What you guys are doing is more like rocket science than what brokerages are doing.
I mean, but again, like, it's just trying.
There's more effort put in place. You deserve, whatever you're making. You're not just like posting a load and having someone call in on it, which anyone could do. You're actually putting the effort in there to
but you're also exposing yourself to all of the scumbags that are on DAT, and not everybody on DAT is a scumbag, but there's a lot of them. And it's just not advantageous for our customer to allow their freight to get that far.
Sure.
Like, that's not what we sold, and that's not what we do. So I just don't want to play that game.
So Tim, on this,
that's crazy
question of like contract for spot, because obviously right now we're in a market where we want to, or companies want to have contract freight. Spot market's doing badly. What's your take? Because your business model right now works well for contract freight, and then if your shippers have spot freight, you definitely can handle it. That's easy, but like, should someone's balance of contract for spot depend on the current market conditions, or are you going to be predominantly contract based no matter what the spot market's doing?
Us specifically at Rocket, like 99.999% contract.
For no matter how good the spot market's doing, you're going to be contract.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
There's again, people may have different definitions of the spot market, whether that's like specifically DAT or just the open market, or if you're going to your own internal carrier base, which is still obviously a transactional market. I just think you leave yourself exposed to too many service failures, or potentially, losing money, as if let's say the spot market gets super hot, like, then you're sitting on bid boards all day. And again, we just don't, that's not, again, you're throwing labor at a problem or a solution. It's just, we're just not built that way.
Sure. But that's from the 3PL brokerage side. What about like Bob, who has a trucking company? Like, should he also be like focused more on contract, like always? Or because like, Bob's milking on that spot market to get hot and, trying to, that's when
But if
Make my
Bob
Bob,
makes a lot
money
of
if
money.
back.
Bob had negotiated contracts, if Bob knows his break even and he's got negotiated contracts at a certain margin that he knows that he can operate on for the next 6 to 12 months, and then he starts to overlap awards, still knowing what his costs are and his break evens are and the operating ratio that he needs to be at to be profitable and to make the money to reinvest, to buy 2 more trucks, 10 more trailers. Why do you want to waste the time on the spot market?
Yeah.
Make
No,
make the
I
money,
agree
like
with you 100%.
make the money.
But
And yeah, I don't mean Bob specifically, but why don't I had
why? Because it's easier.
Yeah. It's short term easier.
Yeah.
Long term, it's not, it's
yeah,
Right. So I feel like
maybe
eventually
Bob, maybe you only need to hire like 2 other people and you can start to flip your model. I had somebody, one of my clients, I sent them a lane file a couple of months ago, and it was for drop. It was from a broker, and I mean they were quoting. Oh man, it was like somewhere on Eastern PA up to Detroit. It's like 550 a mile was their all-in rate, and I'm like, where are you getting these rates? Like, oh well, that's what Amazon's paying today. I said, how long's your deal with Amazon? If you got that deal for the next 12 months, why are you even quoting this rate? Like, no. It's
right.
that project lasts for a week. I'm like, and then what? Like, wouldn't
Right.
you rather secure this business for six months instead of hustling for the next deal?
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what Amazon's paying today or tomorrow, because guess what? They don't care about you.
No.
I mean, Bob, how many times has Amazon
But
shit on you?
we don't work with Amazon at all.
Okay.
So,
But I mean,
yeah. I mean,
it's just
I think we're set
they're
up with
notorious for it.
yeah, yeah. So, okay, what's a good right now? Say if I go to a shipper and I'm like, yo, can you do this at $3 a mile? What's
Okay.
them telling me, yo, screw off? Is that like
Why do you need
is that
$3 a
normal?
mile?
I mean, like you're saying, right? To reinvest into the company, to buy more trucks, to buy more trailers, to
Yeah.
grow,
Okay.
right?
So
In
what's
order
your
to grow.
yeah? So if you're averaging $3 a mile, then what's your
I,
operating ratio look
I
like?
mean, I'm not saying $3 a mile, but say even 250, right? So you could
But you see, you're
so
just throwing numbers out there.
well, yeah, I am but that's kind of what it is. It's got to be more than $2 a mile because I feel like nobody is gonna. You're losing money under $2 a mile right now. The payments that you're paying for the truck, the trailers, everything got way more expensive. The insurance got way more
Right.
expensive.
Oh,
The
I
driver pay
agree.
got more expensive. So that's I'm not throwing $3 a mile. I mean, it would be amazing to get $3 a mile, and it was $3 a mile, a year ago or whatever, like whenever it was right after COVID during the peak. It
But
was
what if
it was
you
even more.
created some loops and you were either loops or relays, or if you had the equipment to drop and the drivers aren't sitting, so the dwell times are minimal, and then all of a sudden you're realizing, all right, you know what, our revenues per hour can increase. Don't look at the rate per mile, look at the actual revenue per hour that the driver is turning those wheels, or of the whole 70-hour clock for the week. Like, what was the revenue per hour? Where did we mess up? You know what, could we have ran this loop for 267 a mile and been more profitable at 267 a mile than $3 a mile or whatever
See,
it was?
it's all rainbow and sunshine when you say all this, but I feel like there's so much going on. I mean,
There
yeah,
is,
maybe
but you
I'm
really
not.
got to dig in and commit to
Yeah,
changing
you're
the
right.
model.
You're right.
Like,
And you actually gave me a really good idea about finding out what the actual cost per mile is and get deep down to it. Because then when you know that, you're right. You can go to the shipper and be like, hey, this is what's costing my truck. I need 10 cents over, 20 cents over extra, to make a profit, to obviously keep growing, to buy new equipment, to reinvest into the company.
but I
So
mean,
so I
I would take it one step further and look at the whole clock for the week for a driver and find out like what the revenues per hour are on that 70
how
hour.
does that work? Never even heard of that.
Another story for another day, but we can dive
Okay.
into it.
Yeah, because
Because if the wheels aren't turning, the truck's not making money, right?
yeah.
So this whole like rate per mile thing, you can average $3 a mile on 10 miles.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
rate per mile
And
is
it's
like an
stupid.
arbitrary number. Like it doesn't. So like
Right.
let's see what the driver does for all 70 hours. Like how often are those wheels turning?
Well,
Or I
70
guess this.
hours. It would be
Well,
70
How
hours.
much? How much is it per mile for 70 hours? Essentially, like how many? Like for the whole week, what was the average altogether?
Bob, we can dive into it
Yeah, we can figure this
offline,
out.
but we can.
Yeah.
We have to
we
do
can-
another
See,
episode where we dive
I'm
into
so
this.
like I'm getting so many ideas and so many things from these podcasts that it's actually pretty amazing, because I never even seen this side of it or never even thought of this side, from like this perspective, and
let's
like
put theory into practice and let's do it.
yeah, I
We
mean,
can do
even what
it.
you're saying
Yeah.
about this, finding out exactly what it's costing your truck, right? The operating costs, and then going with that to the shipper and saying like, hey, I know my numbers, I know what I need, and like kind of what can you do this or not,
We should
so
test it out. We should like do like these episodes where we're actually you're gonna dig into Bob's numbers and see the results of him actually going to shippers, showing like this could be such good educational content.
dude, I wanted to post my numbers on Instagram because I'm pretty open about my numbers. I feel like if you can sustain a company, right? If you can grow a company, good for you. Like I don't mind that, but I think some people just I don't know. I feel like it would
So
affect other people, and you know,
but that
Maybe.
driver that's 4.5 miles per gallon, that's not good.
yeah.
So you need to start digging into that stuff
You
too.
think you think he's stealing fuel?
It's probably just
I mean,
driving
I don't
too
know what's
fast.
going on
Not
there.
safe. Not safe
Yeah.
driving. Tim, you mentioned something like a few minutes ago where Bob, you might just have to hire 2 more people. And I wasn't sure when you said that, was it hire like 2 more people in the office or hire 2 more trucks? Do you remember that part when you said that?
Yeah. No, I was saying like, maybe because he said there's so much going on, it takes so much time, or well, you
Sure.
know what? Maybe you invest in 2 more people to drive that change internally, or like, you can effectively manage the business from the top, and those 2 people are kind of, whether one's a fleet manager or one's an account manager, like, and invest in the admin side of it. I don't know how many dispatchers you have for 15 trucks. You should maybe have 1.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion. How many do you have, Bob?
Yeah, a one dispatcher right now in this market, that's you're not gonna cover
Because
any trucks.
they have to call all these spot loads, and they're fighting for all these loads.
Right.
It's tough. Yeah.
Yeah, like if you're a
But
300 truck company and you have 20 dispatchers and 0 fleet managers, you're doing something wrong.
what do you mean? So you need a fleet manager? Is that
Yeah,
what you're trying
like
to say?
that's what I'm saying is, like, if you're gonna flip the model and you're gonna start gearing towards contract, like, you don't need all these dispatchers running around making, like, it's just, again,
Right. Well, that makes
this goes
sense.
back to the whole thing about running a spot market brokerage.
Yeah,
You've thrown
100%.
labor at a problem.
Yeah.
And that's why we have our higher rate per mile, because our overhead cost and all our costs is like way
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
No, you're right. If you do have contracted freight, right, and you say that this shipper is going to be shipping every day, and you go pick up that load, well, guess what? You could schedule out for a week in advance. You know exactly where to flip your drivers around.
Yeah.
But when you have
Yeah.
10 drivers that are driving, and one is in Minnesota, one is in Missouri, one is in Buffalo, New York, one is in Charlotte, and you're trying to find them a load to get them somewhere else, it's tough, especially in this
Yeah, I mean,
market.
but to do what, like, so I mean, you said it, like, the words just came out of your mouth, but are you willing to kind of eat shit for a year to get into these shippers and change the model and maybe
I
break
am if I had
even?
the money for it.
That's, I mean,
Circling back to why we don't hire more people? We actually are hiring. We're looking for, if anybody's watching this, and they're looking for a job and want to work out of the office in Charlotte, we're hiring, especially if you know anything about logistics. So yeah. It's just hard. It's hard. You're saying, oh, hire 2 more people, but I feel like to run an actual business, I mean, maybe it's just me. It's super tough. It's not easy, to find the right people to put the right people in place.
I definitely agree with.
And it all sounds like, oh, let's do that. And it's like, yeah, I'm all for it, but oh my goodness, it takes so much time to put the right people in the right places.
I mean, to make this change, like, it's you have to sit here sit there and say, all right, today's March 9th, 2023. Am I ready to go to March 9th, 2024? Am I committed to this change? Like for anybody that's watching this, like if you want, because it's a really difficult time to do it. You just have to be committed to it, and you'll get through the RFP cycles. If you service the shit out of the freight, there's plenty of shippers out there that we spoke to this past week that are like, we are loyal to our incumbents. Like that's a great position to be in, to be an incumbent with a high volume shipper that runs, potentially like a medium haul or regional networks that you can turn maybe 2 loads in a day. You can drop your equipment along I-76 or I-80 and relay drivers, and all of a sudden they're home every night and your driver retention's huge. Like maybe you're getting day cabs now, like your slip seating drivers running 24-hour operations. Like there's so many opportunities.
So now you're not sleeping for 24 hours.
I said slip seating. So you get
no. I'm saying as like a owner, now you're not sleeping for 24 hours because you got drivers running 24 hours.
But it's automated. It's automated though. It's everything ahead of time.
Trucks are not automated.
But you have a schedule. I know the trucks aren't automated, but you have a schedule where it's like
the driver hop into
every day
dedicated
does
operation.
the same thing, and you hire the good drivers that know that every day they're going to run this lane, kind of thing. It's
No, I get that. My point was like, you could have all that planned out, and then a truck breaks down, and then you're still waking up in the middle of the night to get it fixed.
But those are the exemptions that Tim was saying. That's what they cover for on a shipper. Is if something goes badly, they'll make sure it's recovered. But
you're only managing the exception to the norm when something happens. So
exactly. Yeah.
Exception-based management.
Question: What are, I think I've asked this before in other podcasts. What are RFPs?
Request for pricing.
Oh, okay.
It's shippers request
proposal or whatever.
Yeah, shippers, Bob, typically in February will send out an RFP to any broker they're set up with, or trucking company, and it will list all their lanes, all their dedicated lanes that they have for, let's just say usually it's like what, the whole year or for like 2 quarters?
Well, we're seeing more people go to a 6 month.
6 months, so 2 quarters. Yeah. It's 2. So and they'll be like, they're going to send you an Excel sheet, Bob, and it's going to have like maybe thousands of lanes depending on the shipper. But you're going to have to fill in your per mile rate, and then typically the fuel is on top of that. Like fuel's separate. You just put your per mile rate. And whatever because since fuel changes every week, or they have like their own breakthrough fuel and stuff like that added onto it, and so that's what an RFP is. And like if you want to go get set up with shippers now, it's a good time to start reaching out, making connections, and maybe in 6 months you'll get an RFP from a shipper, and you're gonna have to fill it out.
Oh, okay. See, I did not know that. I don't know that side of the business at all, so everything is kind of new to me. But yeah. Cool. I had a question. So how does a carrier sign up with Rocket Logistics? Like so right now, do you reach out to the carriers, or the carriers have to reach out to you guys?
I reach out to a lot of carriers just from, carriers that I know in the past, use a lot of integration software that kind of lane match and give you, carriers that run that lane historically. There's so much software out there now, like C4 Cargo Chief or Green Screens or whatever. They're going to tell you like, hey, these carriers are running this lane on, these given days. And, that helps. Searching directories, a lot of cold calls go on here. I mean, but obviously,
say if somebody listens to this podcast and they want to
reach out to me on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Okay.
Yeah. Shoot me a message.
And then you just check if they're good to go, and then basically you get them set up. Ask what lanes. See, I think that's what we're doing wrong. You keep talking about lanes and stuff.
So it's not just like hey, what's up, Bob? What lanes do you run? Yeah, cool. Let's do this. Like I'm grilling our carriers kind of the way I was just grilling you. Like, don't just throw rates at me. Don't tell me you run everywhere. Like, okay, if you need X amount per mile, why? Because it's a waste of our time, and it's a waste of your time for us to just try and win freight that's not winnable because we don't know why we're bidding it.
So should I explain why I need 220?
No, but you know what? You know how many carriers I've sat down with and gone through that break-even calculator? And
okay, and how many I don't know, but how many of them are under $2 a mile? A lot of them? Just from my record.
There's a lot that are sitting right around the two.
Two? Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to see like how far off we are. I don't know. I mean, we did buy all like mostly new equipment, so we have pretty high payments towards that. So that's
Right.
kind of eating
Insurance
into our
costs,
cost
too.
too. And insurance costs because we're kind of new to the industry. So I'm sure there's a lot of like we're paying 20 grand for insurance, if not
Insurance
more,
is
I think,
insane.
per truck. Yeah. So that's where our issue is, and obviously the driver pay is huge and the fuel expense is huge. So, but yeah.
And so if we run through an RFP and we take 5 lanes for you and we give them to the shipper and the shipper comes back and is like, oh, hey, we need you to be 13 cents lower per mile on this lane and you can have it. You hear 13 cents and you're like, absolutely not. And then, well, let's dive into the numbers and really look at it and understand, all right, can we do that 13 cents? And if we pair it with this other lane that's maybe paying a little bit more, or these 3 lanes or 4, whatever. All right, well, now actually that's enough for a driver to make, to gross his 8 grand a week or whatever it needs to be,
Yeah.
and then we have a solution and it works for you and it works for the shipper.
Dang, that's really smart, man. Yeah.
I don't think it's that smart, but thank you.
No, it is. It is because I feel like a lot of people don't realize this, especially like, see, I kind of come from a background of like, I feel like Slavics, and I feel like we think
consolidation.
Yeah, we think differently. We're just like, and I still might have a little bit of that in me, but I feel like I need to change to what you're saying, because that sounds like a way better option instead of haunting for all these loads every single day,
Right.
Yeah.
Even when we were talking about in the other podcast about like even figuring out your triangle or whatever it is or a square, that way you kind of at least know your lanes that you're running, because this kind of nonsense running stars all over the country doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. It really doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it's like because even like we were talking with David, and he said about the triangle, like even when you have a breakdown, all the repair shops on the way there. You know all your connections that way, and it makes life so much easier. And we definitely got to refocus. I think our company just definitely needs to refocus towards that. So
I mean, there's so many that are in your position,
right? And this is why we're doing these podcasts, because it's so good. I feel like people are. I mean, I don't think I'm the only one that's gonna have like a brain light. Like, dang, this is what we got to do.
But you get super excited when you hear the podcast, and then the next day you forget about it. You move, and I don't mean you, but like you.
Yeah.
And I think if there's a commitment to this, and this might sound like a little fanboyish, like if there's a commitment to just being a little bit better from you or anybody that's in your situation that's running that model, like to just be a little bit better, like that's better for the industry as a whole. Like this whole scummy transactional model, and you're not one of those people. It's bad for the industry. And that'll never go away fully. But if people commit to this, it's going to be better for the brokers. It's going to be better for the shippers. It's going to be better for you. There's going to be 100%. A little bit more of that buzzword transparency. Everybody's going to be a little bit more comfortable with working together. I just think it's as Kyle Lintner says, better is coming. And I think that if everybody commits to this, and there's so much more that goes along with that, I'd say, Bob, automate as much of this as you can. Figure out what integrations you can get. Or anybody out there.
What's your freight tech stack, Tim, like for automations and like helping your like processes?
We have a lot of internal proprietary software on the Rocket Tech side that has allowed us to kind of do things, make things a lot easier. Like I said, the whole automated tendering and being able to build routing guides. I feel like there weren't a lot of TMSs that allowed us to do that. Now we do use Tide TMS kind of in the everyday, but everything integrates across all of our platforms. We do use Cargo Chief, which I love. Obviously, on the tracking side, we have Fork Guides, we have Macro Point. Trying to think what else. I think it's pretty minimal.
Okay, got it. Bob just dipped.
Bob left.
I don't think he did.
No. I'm still here. I just have to respond really quick because my one of my drivers is having a big issue. So I'm still here though.
We're gonna start to move into hopefully being able to do live API pricing. We're gonna have to probably get a couple of other integrations for that, being able to push out to our shippers that can accommodate it. We kind of talked about this past week with somebody at Food Shippers, one of our potential new partners, being able to provide live drop trailer pricing via API and see how it compares to their routing guide. If let's say Bob has gotten his 5 loads for the week and then there's overflow, we can push out a live API price and it'll compare to what they're currently doing in their routing guide. So they can decide if they tender the overflow back to that primary carrier or if they'll go with, a potential solution. So we're going to have to probably add a couple more integrations for that, but that's something that we're working on as well.
Got it.
Nice.
Interesting.
I had another question, if you don't mind me. I mean, we're kind of going pretty long, but another one was asking, is it possible for freight markets to be regulated?
They used to be.
Yeah, deregulation created all this.
Which president deregulated it? It was back in the 80s, right? 70s?
I think so. I think it was Reagan.
You think it would be better to be regulated or not?
No.
It's somebody's always going to be unhappy. If it gets regulated, and not to the tune that the third parties or the carriers like it, then there's probably not. There's too much.
Yeah,
there's too much
I don't think we should regulate it, to be honest. I feel like it's the supply and demand, and if you're living in America and a democracy, it's kind of
capitalism, baby.
Regulations for that. Exactly.
It's a commodity. It's a commodity.
Exactly. So
yeah. No, I think it'd be tough. I think like a lot of companies would just, I don't know, they wouldn't have business probably, right? Like
yeah, it'd be bad.
Yeah, it would be really
bad.
But then
opportunity that this country creates for people to come here.
Yeah, but then remember when it was regulated, everybody was saying that trucking was amazing, drivers were happy,
brokers didn't exist.
People were saying that a year ago.
True. A year ago was nice.
And you know what? A year from now, I'm sure people are going to be saying it again. It's
like, they're going to be like, we don't need regulation now. We're good now.
Yeah. I mean,
I hope in a year.
Wasn't that long ago, and 2019 was terrible.
Yeah. I hate how all these trucking companies just complain about brokers, and they just say brokers are the worst or thieves. It's like you literally could go directly and work with the shipper. Like you're holding yourself back if you're just trashing brokers all the time.
I think it's a terrible mindset to have. There's always an opportunity out there to get with the right broker. And there's always a broker out there that's looking for that specific carrier to work with.
Yeah.
But it's not even about the broker sometimes, because we were talking about this, I think yesterday or a couple of days ago with one of my friends. Sometimes so if you're an owner operator and you lease onto a company and the dispatchers are cutting your rate, so imagine the broker's making his profit and then the dispatchers are still cutting your rate. Then the driver gets pissed off because he's like, yo, why am I only making this much money?
So dispatchers cutting the rate and sliding a little bit back.
Exactly.
Company. So let's say shipper.
So
broker gives a load for $3,000. You're essentially rebrokering it back to the driver for 25.
Exactly.
And taking the percentage if it's an owner operator.
And taking it, dude. This happened in Chicago all the time, and
I'm aware. I'm not playing dumb. I know this happens.
Tim and I have talked about this
because
at dinner.
This is man. This is the
This
scummiest
I hate
move.
that. Yeah, exactly. I agree with that 100%.
If you are taking driver's pay, and there's got to be like it, if you don't want to give the drivers all that money, then raise your percentage.
Right. That way they know exactly what it is.
If you're charging 12% or 15% or 20% and you want more money, then charge 25%. But you're not out there behind the wheel. So
yeah, exactly. What I heard from their side is like what they say is like, well, we told say it was the $3,000 load. Well, we asked the driver if he was okay with $2,500. He said yes, like to book it for 25, but they actually booked it for $3,000. And he's like, and that's how they try to make it as in it's okay.
Or they take out a trailer fee.
Right.
I've seen that before too, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. You've had your fair share of experiences with some companies, Tim. I know you when we talked a couple of weeks ago, you said you wouldn't mind talking about one of them publicly. Do you still want to talk about them publicly?
Which one was it?
St. Louis.
Oh, I mean, what sort of feedback do you want when a company is working out of a tiny little office and hires 4 or 5 people that significantly grow their business and take them to the next level, put them on the Inc. 5000 list, and then treat everybody terribly, fire them, still firing people, forget about the people that got them there, are disrespectful to people.
Oh, wow. I think we just did a load with them.
So Tim built that company up to what it is today.
There were people that helped me.
Yeah,
but
wow, listen to this. I literally emailed them. I'm like, urgent, because they left the load at a cross dock and they can't get this stuff. Like this cross docking people, we loaded a thing for them, and these cross docking people can't get a hold of them. And this load is just at a cross dock right now in California.
Is it your load? Did you move
joke. I moved it for them. I booked the load with them. I moved it to California. My driver was supposed to deliver it, and I guess they rescheduled the appointment for like the next week. So they're like, hey, drop it at a cross dock. I drop it at a cross dock, because they send me the address at which cross dock to drop it. I drop it there. The load has been there for like 2 weeks, apparently.
Wow.
And so the cross dock can't get a hold of them, so they keep getting a hold of us because they had our driver, information on there. So they're like, yo, who's picking up these pallets? And I literally emailed them like urgent. This was like February 27th, but like we booked it on like February 10th or something like that. Yeah, February 10th.
They celebrate their growth, and it's not like I don't care. I don't want the recognition. I don't need the recognition. But when you treat people the way that they treat people, it's disgusting. Like,
yeah.
They tried to enforce an NDA that they forged in my name after I left here. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Wow. Dang, I did not know that.
Maybe we don't put that on.
I could cut that out.
No, I mean we can. We could just blur out the company, right? We could just blur out who the company is. But we can talk about this because this is actually pretty important. That's funny. Well, it's not funny that you said that, because even when I reached out to them about this, like I'm doing them a favor, right? Because we don't care. We got paid for it. We dropped their load, and whoever their customer is probably pissed they can't find their load. So I'm doing them a favor. I reached out to them. I'm like, hey, you guys forgot. This was my first reach out. I had to reach out to them like 3 times about this load. No joke. And this guy is like, what do you want? Like literally giving me attitude, And I'm like, dude, I'm literally trying to help you out to recover one of your loads,
That's how they operate. Like they're,
From what country? What country are they from? Most of them. They're less. Okay. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's just, I think that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's crazy that you mentioned that, because literally we thought we were talking about them like not that long ago, and I was like, what the heck is wrong with these people? Like, how do you leave just pallets?
Here's a perfect example. They just celebrated that they just opened a new fulfillment center. They do warehousing too. They have like this picture of everybody that helped them do it. But the previous week, they had fired 2 people that helped them build that fulfillment center. that had been with the company for a long time. For no reason, they said, sorry, you don't fit the culture anymore.
Wow.
One of them used to be the warehouse manager who would work 15, 16, 17-hour days to make sure that somebody was there to receive the loads in the morning and was there until the last load went out at night. And then you fire him because he doesn't fit the culture. Like, there's no more hardworking individual than that person that you just fired. And then I chirped them on LinkedIn and they blocked me. So
honestly, I think the load that we hauled for them, it was a double brokered flak load because it had the BOL from flak. So
I mean they double broker nonstop. Yeah, you can. That's
okay.
right. Yeah, don't cut that out.
Yeah.
Wait, so yeah, it's obviously all brokered. You should reach out to Flak. Wait, what?
They double broker like you wouldn't believe.
Wait, so you should just reach out to Flock, Bob. Why don't you just reach out to Flock?
I honestly, I don't want to. Sometimes I don't want to create.
Wait a second. Did you pick it up in St. Louis?
Yeah, I picked it up.
You picked it up from their warehouse in St. Louis. In Hazelwood.
Yeah,
got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I honestly think so. The way they did it, I think they
partial.
booked like probably two flak loads in there because it was a 2-stopper. You know.
No, they put a Reckitt load in there and they put a flock load in there. I know exactly what they did. So
a rocket load?
No, Reckitt Benckiser.
Got it. Okay.
Or probably some food grade load that they shouldn't have broken the seal on. They dropped. They're like a small time go-to logistics.
Thanks for tuning in to the Daily Freight Caviar podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, or if you didn't, leave a review. Let me know what you think. I appreciate any feedback. If you'd like to have more Freight Caviar content, go to freightcaviar.com and subscribe to my email newsletter.